Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight to talk all things Christmas. Obviously, Christmas a week away, so lots of conversation to have this evening. I'm going to bring some speakers up onto the stage this evening. So just as I'm adding them and getting them up onto the stage and getting everything working, I will tell you a little bit about how Twitter Spaces works. Don't know who's been to Spaces before, who's familiar with Spaces and knows how it all works. But if you do know, this is just a bit of recap, and if you don't know, it's all perhaps new. So the things to tell you about Twitter Spaces. At the bottom, you'll see a little heart with a little plus sign beside it. That will allow you to send us emojis and little bits of information. So if you have a look at that, press that little heart down with the plus sign, you'll be able to send us whatever emoji you think you fancy sending. So you could send a little wave, you could send 100% if you agree with something we're saying. There isn't one for if you don't agree, but maybe that's something we need to suggest that Twitter creates. Good to see some people using those emojis, so fantastic. It's just really good to know who can do what within the space. The other thing to let you know is at the top of this space, you'll see 3 little dots, and those little dots allow you to turn captions on. So if you do want to do that and have the ability to read what we're saying while we're talking, of course they're there and they're a feature that's available, and some people find them really helpful. The other thing to tell you is that we want this session to be interactive. We'd love you to join us on stage and have a conversation with us this evening. So do feel free to join us and pop up. The ways that you can do that is if you've got the ability to request the mic, which should be down towards the left-hand side of your screen. You can hit there, request the mic, come up and join us, and we'll bring you up because we'd love to hear from you. The other thing that you can do is you can use your emojis again and put your hand up, and I'll have a look every so often and see. And if I see hands up, of course, I'll invite you to speak and to come and join us. If people do the quick emojis, they kind of fleet up and they fleet down, and sometimes it's not always entirely clear whether someone wants to join us or whether they're just waving or laughing or agreeing. So do try and do that, and we'll try and get you on stage to join in with us this evening. So while I'm doing a few technical bits behind the scene, I'm Vic Lyons. I'm the host of the session, and I'm really delighted that tonight I'm joined by a couple of my Admiral nurse colleagues. So I'm going to invite them on the stage one by one just to say hi to you and let you know who they are, and then we will launch into all things Christmas. So Asma, as you're nearest along my time screen, would you like to just unmute and say hello, please?
Hi, I'm Asma, and I'm Admiral Nurse for Gloucestershire Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust.
Thanks, Asma. Thank you so much for joining us. Next on my line is Mark.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Mark Oakley, and I'm Lead Admiral Nurse at Wrightington, Wigan and Leigh up here in Lancashire.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. And next along the line is Jeanette. Jeanette, do you want to say hello as well?
Evening, everybody. I'm Jeanette Hogg. I'm the Lead Admiral Nurse based on the Isle of Man. I work in a hospice.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So, Christmas round the corner, just about to approach, and as we know, it's a lovely time of year, lots of festivities, great time to see your family and get together. But also for some people, it can at times be challenging. So can I ask each of you to just tell me why do you think that is? Why is it sometimes challenging? What's your views? Anybody wants to jump in and have an idea? Anybody? Either Mark, Asma, or Jeanette, perhaps.
Well, I'll pop in. I think there's just so much pressure on people, isn't there, to get presents and prepare everything, and there just seems to be so much to do. Anyway, I think it's quite a stressful time for a lot of people and families anyway, regardless of whether you've got dementia or not. And then you throw dementia into the mix, it kind of complicates things a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. And I think we do. We put this pressure on ourselves, don't we, actually, to make everything perfect, and the things we see on the television and the adverts. Anybody else? Why do we think it's challenging? Or
I think it's because obviously COVID has been around for nearly 2 years now, and that's had an impact on people. So I think it's just trying to balance out what's right to do and how to work things and what's safe for everyone. That adds extra challenges into everything.
yeah,
And I also think that it's that one time of year where everybody wants to get together, and it's about doing what's right, and realizing that there's nothing that's wrong.
yeah, you're so right, aren't you? And I think it is, the one thing that I think about it in whoever you are, whatever situation you're dealing with, actually, Christmas for all of us can be challenging, and it can be that pressure that we put on ourselves, that need for everything to be perfect, to all look amazing, everybody to be happy and enjoying themselves, and it's quite a lot of expectation that we put on. So one of the things I thought it might be useful to think a little bit about is the idea that if you plan ahead, that because most things in life, if you plan and you think about them in advance, you can kind of make them a little bit smoother, perhaps. If you were running a marathon, you would train and you would plan. So what in terms of Christmas, how can we plan ahead? And again, from any of my speakers, feel free to jump in and give us share some tips about how we could plan ahead for Christmas.
I think from my perspective, it's sort of really understanding what is the situation. Is it that the person with dementia, for instance, is living in their own home, or are they living in a care home? And as an acute Admiral nurse, are they actually in hospital? And certainly, backing up what Asma was saying at the moment with regard to COVID, I've got this horrible feeling that tomorrow my trust is going to continue with the blanket ban on visiting going forward. So it's around, do people travel? Don't people travel? And what all the things that entails as well.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more soon about care homes and visiting, or if someone's in an acute hospital, because I think you're absolutely right, Mark, that adds an extra layer, doesn't it, onto the pressures. Anybody else got any thoughts about planning ahead?
I think for me, it's things like making lists. So if you've got people coming over, if you're caring for someone with dementia, or if you are someone with dementia and you're planning to have a little gathering at home, then having a list, making sure you've got the right things at home, so enough food. If you have to go out somewhere, then making sure you've got your medication, certain things, just to make sure that you've got everything kind of on top of you, just so that it feels right. And yeah.
Do you know what, you make a really great point there, Asma, with regards to medication as well, because this is one of the things that we know a lot of the services that are there to support people over Christmas, they might close down. They've got different opening hours. People might not have the medication with them, or forget medication even when they go away and stay with relatives. And I think that's so important, isn't it? Because if someone doesn't have the medication for any length of time, they're going to deteriorate. And so actually planning to make sure that's there. Any other tips in terms of planning that people would like to share?
I think it's important to realise that, as I've said, it's a family time, and excuse me, you can do this together. It's not about one person having to take on the whole burden. So actually get together and actually identify different things that people can do, so that you get it all right in the end. So that one person doesn't feel, I'm very stressed about this, and then they in turn don't actually enjoy the planning running up to Christmas. But more importantly, they worry then that they're not going to enjoy the actual period of Christmas as well.
Yeah, I think Mark's right. I think it's about breaking it into small chunks, isn't it? And making it a bit more manageable. I'm very much with Asma on that one as well, in terms of making a list. And in fact, when you said making a list, I started singing the Christmas song in my head. You know, we're making a list, and Santa knows if you've been naughty or nice. That one was going through my head when you said that. But I think it's breaking it down into smaller chunks and involving the person with dementia as much as you can. You know, whether it be wrapping presents, you know, or preparing the veg on the day or the day before, whenever you happen to do it. I think it's just, the more you can break stuff down, the easier it is, and it becomes less stressful then, doesn't it? I think.
It's also true, isn't it? And I guess in terms of planning ahead as well, I said we talk about care homes and hospitals, but do you think it's a good idea, if possible, because to me it makes sense to, if you can, to kind of have a dress rehearsal, if you like, if you can, see how it goes, or if someone's able to come to your house and spend some time with you, to kind of bring them out before and see how the visit goes. Do you know people have done anything like that?
Yeah, I think agree. Having that that practice run, just to see how it goes, because it can be, if you've got lots and lots and lots of people around, it can be quite intimidating for the person with dementia, for instance. So having that practice run, if you're, for instance, taking somebody out of a care home for Christmas Day, take them out, but involve the care staff in the planning of that, so that it runs as smoothly as it can be, and ask for their advice. Because I'm a firm believer that when people come into hospital, we borrow them. We have a little play around to get them well, and then we give them back. And it's the relatives and the carers who are the experts. So utilize as many people as possible, in that planning, and then getting that practice run, and then sort of learn from that.
I think you've actually hit the nail on the head, that the carers and the people with dementia are the experts, and we as healthcare professionals have to use them for our advice, and absolutely using them to help us plan what's the right thing to do for their loved one. It's absolutely perfect.
And certainly, if something does go wrong, don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a learning experience, and don't give up and think, well, it's failed, so we're not going to do that. Still go with your plan, but you might have to alter it slightly because of something that's happened in your practice run.
And one of the things I used to, because my grandma had dementia, and one of the things we used to do in my family was kind of have agreed roles beforehand, so different people knew what the task was, so and particular roles that we tried to stick with. So, for example, my grandma used to quite like a drink of whiskey, and so the rule was that only one person was allowed to give her a drink of whiskey. Otherwise, she'd ask everybody and get merrily more and more tipsy throughout the day. And so that was always actually my job. One of my jobs was to kind of know how much she'd had to drink, and to make sure that that helped her to enjoy the day and still participate and have a drink, but not end up tipsy. So kind of thinking in advance, okay, who needs what role, and actually what role does the person with dementia play? Because again, in my family, my grandma used to enjoy preparing vegetables and wrapping some presents up, and we used to, in part of our planning, always include, well, what tasks can we do as a family, and what can grandma do as well?
That sounds so good, and it's about keeping some sort of routine and familiarity. So if that was part of what what your grandma was involved in doing the vegetables, it's really nice to involve them, because then they feel it just helps them to feel that this is the right thing for them to do, and it helps reduce anxiety for them. It's just, I think that's really nice for everyone in the family, and it makes everyone feel involved, like a really party atmosphere, which it should do.
Yeah.
And I think also, if you use that analogy as well, it also helps to make those memories going forward. It's important to have those memories to look back at, say, this is what we did last Christmas, this is what we did this Christmas. So it's about memory making as well.
Yeah, perfect. I'm just going to, we've been joined on stage by Manny, so I was just going to say hi to you and ask you if you was something you wanted to make a point at this time, or...
Hello, how you doing, everybody? And just want to thank all the so many experts on here and the Admiral nurses for all the wonderful work you do, caring for the families and the people who, have to deal with this such cruel illness. I just wanted to sort of make a point on because we're in such an unpredictable environment now, with obviously what's happening in the world and what's going to happen next and how we're going to be restricted, that while we try and plan things, we also have to retain a little bit of spontaneity and react in the moment and almost like seize a moment. So something that another charity that I've been involved with, which is the Wolves Foundation, did, who helped the local community. They did random phone calls to a lot of the elder supporters of the football team, who are alone supporters who were sort of living alone or were on their own, or they got certain celebrities or people who are affiliated with their organisations to make surprise phone calls, and it just gave a very uplifting, heartwarming message to them that, oh, look, you're not alone, we're here for you. And something maybe Dementia UK, as they get more ambassadors and other people who may not be experts, to just not maybe people who are suffering with dementia, but the actual families or friends, that you could highlight and just be in the moment and just surprise, because the element of surprise sometimes gives you a real lift. It's not a routine thing that you're expecting. It's not in the diary, and it's like receiving a gift at the front door, and it just lifts you for the rest of the day. And especially at this time of year, and with all the uncertainty, I think that's really, really important that we do that in some way if we can.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? And I think, one of the things that you said there that I loved as well was that, that it's a little thing, isn't it? A phone call. It doesn't
Yeah.
take loads, but actually it can really uplift somebody and make a massive difference to...
I went to a football match this yesterday in Brighton. Just come back now. Spent the night there, and I met a couple of fans who knew about the work I did and the fundraising and the volunteering with you guys. And they told me their personal stories about, parents who had passed away or they were dealing with, at home. And we just sat there in the hotel, totally randomly, just having a wonderful, uplifting conversation, with just random people. And I think it's more than just the fundraising. It's more than just the money and the awareness. It's just being there for each other, and communication is really, really key. Whilst we're away from each other physically because of restrictions, maybe again, phone calls, video calls, messages. This type of space, you could have a Christmas space and try and invite families that are on social media to join a Twitter space, so they all come on and we talk to, not amongst ourselves, i.e. the experts, but we talk to the people who use the service. So maybe an invite to them to, join us for a Twitter party or something, or just to get together or something,
I love the idea of doing it on Twitter as well. That's great, isn't it? And I guess you're right. There's so much potential, and so much to do, and and it is difficult, isn't it? To kind of decide where the focus needs to be and what to do, and and how to take things forward. But some great ideas there, and I'll definitely feed them back, Manny, because as
Thank you.
always, really, really, really fantastic ideas there.
Manny, if I could just sort of like add to that, I think what you said is really, really good. And I'm an acute Admiral nurse, so I work within a hospital, and as I've already stated, that the visiting is quite difficult. But one of the things that my trust has done is invested in iPads which can connect up, and we're certainly doing a lot of work at the moment and leading up to Christmas of doing FaceTime calls for relatives to speak to their relatives and see them face to face if they can't actually come into the building. So, that's something that we can do here to make it a little bit easier if we can't actually get together.
Yeah, that's great. That, you know, obviously we live in the world of this media. Here we are, you know, many of us will never meet each other, but we're actually connecting with each other. So, and it just gives you a warm feeling when you do that quite randomly. I wasn't planning to join this space, but I have, and it's, you know, given me information. So this type of randomness also works as well. Humans work well that way. Sometimes, you know, yes, you need a plan. Yes, you need to, you know, in terms of care and medical side, but the human side, it's there's sometimes rules get in the way of a real connection. So there's got to be sort of a balance between the two.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what, you're right about another thing there as well. When you were talking, I was thinking about that ability to go with the flow sometimes. Because yes, you're absolutely right. You know, having that plan can help you to at least get your head around some of the challenges you might face, and so you're thinking in advance about, you know, how the day is going to pan out and what's going to go on. But that ability, and who knows, we could be back in another lockdown and everything changes. You know, having that ability to go with the flow, or your loved one might not want to come on the day itself and might say, no, thank you, not for me, or they might be sick or poorly, or anything can happen, can't it? So having that ability to absolutely go with the flow and be a bit random when you need to can really work, can't it? I'm going to tell you another story about my grandma, because this was quite random and caused a family debate. When she was with us one Christmas and kept asking what day it was, what day it is, and you know, when we'd say Christmas and she'd say, oh well, I haven't had any presents, and we'd say, yes, you've got presents, and she'd look and she'd see the presents, and eventually, after quite a long time of her asking this question, I said to her, oh, it's Easter. And she looked at the tree and she looked at me, and then she started laughing and she said to everybody, oh, isn't she so daft? She thinks it's Easter and there's a Christmas tree. And then she spent the rest of the day telling everybody how daft I was because I thought it was Easter. And, you know, and so it sort of changed some of the narrative, but also changed the, you know, her feeling that she was being daft. It was me who was daft because I didn't know what day it was. And, you know, and I remember my mum saying she thought it was the most random thing I'd ever said, that you know, but it totally jumped that her to a different place and shifted some of the kind of challenge that other people were having. I guess leading on from that, I'm thinking about, you know, if you are spending your day with somebody with dementia, what might you be able to do to ease some of their day? You know, and I shared earlier some stories that we used in my own family about who did different roles during the day, how things panned out. But has anybody got any tips for the day itself, and how you might kind of, because Christmas can be crazy and mad, can't it, with all of the stuff going on, and quite noisy if your Christmases are anything like mine. So how might you kind of protect the person from some of that madness? Any tips on that?
I think you know, you should try and uphold as many normal routines for them as possible. Yes, it is a special day, but they may not be bought into that because they don't realise. So keeping to their routines as much as you can. So thinking about what time do they have their meals? You know, do they have a set time for having a drink? You know, you were saying about the cup of whiskey, you know, and TV programs and things like that. So it's about, for me, it's about trying to make sure that we adhere to their routines as much as possible so that it doesn't upset them.
I absolutely agree. I think, Mark, one story that always sticks out for me is one of my people I was caring for, and the patient, she said, well, the carer said to me that she starts every morning by popping some music on for her husband, and that actually really settles him and that keeps their day going. So if there's specific routines that suit someone with dementia, then kind of carry that on, just so that helps with some form of routine. But also something, another tip might be having a little quiet room. So if there are lots of people in the house, just having a little room where the person with dementia and the carer can go away for a little while, just to kind of calm down, and then they can come back in again if they needed a nap or if they needed a cup of tea somewhere different, just so that they've got somewhere that they can just go for a few minutes just to feel calmer.
Yeah, I agree, Asma. It's really important to have that sort of quiet space, a bit of downtime, isn't it? And I think you can kind of make that room a bit more friendly for the person as well, just by having, like, the favourite cushion there, or making the room smell of like a favourite scent and things like that. So they've got those sort of comfort elements as well, just to kind of help settle them. We used to do that with my great auntie who had dementia, and she used to come to us for Christmas, and she'd quite often go and have a little lie down after the Christmas dinner, and just go and have a little snooze. But she always brought her pillow with her, so she had that sort of the comfort, the smell, and everything like that, which seemed to work quite well for her. And then once she'd had a little snooze, she'd have a party out on later on, and pull in some crackers later on once she'd had a little rest.
Yeah, some great tips there, and I think the other one that I would share is thinking about children, and if there's children around, and again, in my family, my grandma absolutely loved seeing the children. Her face used to light up whenever the kids came around, but actually she used to find them really tiring as well. And so we used to have to think about the noise levels, and all the different things that could sort of compete for attention, and crackers going off, someone singing, loud conversations, the television blaring, her worrying about what time the Queen's talking and someone else wants to watch EastEnders or Strictly or whatever, and actually trying to kind of limit as much as possible, and if everybody is just mindful of the fact that for a person with dementia, sometimes all of that overstimulation is actually just too much. It's too difficult, and and actually sort of limiting some of those. So I love the idea of a quiet room, somewhere where that feels personal, with a smell. That, because if you're in someone else's house, the idea of going and taking yourself off to a different room might feel a bit unfamiliar, but actually making it okay for that to happen, and and actually making sure everybody's aware. And it can be hard with very small children, but once they get a little bit older, you can kind of say to people, this, we need to kind of just lower the noise levels a little bit, and of course when the party hat's on and the music's blaring and everything's great, you just go with that, and stick with it. The other thing I was thinking about is the kind of activities that people do over Christmas periods, because there's so many activities that someone with dementia can absolutely join in, whether it's your kind of practical activities such as peeling veg, or whether it's a small fun short activity like whether it's listening to some music, or playing a game, playing charades, or again playing the game where you put a post-it note on someone's head and you have to guess who the character is. And there's things that you can do that don't have lots of stimulation, and can be quite fun, providing they're short. I probably wouldn't go game of Monopoly, for example. But anybody got any tips around activities?
I was just thinking myself, being a bit nostalgic. So looking at, TV and was a big thing around Christmas. The programs you used to watch, and sitting around, and like there's lots of media channels available now. So maybe, looking at favourite TV programs or films from the past that your loved ones might have liked, and recreating like a day from the past, with the music that you play, or the games, or what you watch on that day, and also making Christmas flexible. So even, if you're worried about the restrictions, or you're worried about maybe will something come in place that will prevent us seeing somebody at Christmas, bring it forward, do it a bit earlier whilst we got the chance, and surprise them. And if you do it on the day as well, they can have two, two Christmases. So I just like the idea of, my perfect Christmas would be just watching a box set of Only Fools and Horses from morning till night, and that's my Christmas. So I was just thinking, maybe identifying somebody's favorites music, and downloading everything and recreating a day like that.
You're so right, and after all, it is just a day, isn't it? Because although it seems to be a week, it is just a day. And why do you have to actually do it on the actual day? Or why does it have to be the whole day? If you know that your loved one is better in the morning than the afternoon, have your Christmas thing in the morning, have your lunch early, be a bit random or a bit spontaneous, and go with what feels like it works. Any other tips from any of our other speakers?
I think it moves on from having your practice runs and planning ahead, but find out from the people who know them the most what they used to like to do and what they like to do now, and then try and bring that into the day so it gives breaks it up a little bit more. So it doesn't have to all be around about noisy, etc. It can be that quiet area, but maybe something as simple as just going for a little walk just to break it up.
Yeah, so true. Asma or Jeanette or indeed Manny, any other tips about activities?
I was just going to say, maybe.
Sorry, go on, Asma.
No, I was just going to say, just thinking about how dark it gets quite early on. So actually, just bearing that in mind. So if you know that if your loved one has come, the person with dementia has come out of their house and they're going to return home again, just planning that they're actually home before it gets too dark, just so they can get reoriented to get back home, and that just reduces levels of anxiety for when they're back at home. So it's exactly what you and Mark just said before about Christmas doesn't all have to be about the whole day. You can split it up into different days, and so if they're out during the daytime, they're back before it gets really dark at about 4ish, and so they feel safer that they're back in their environment.
Yeah, great ideas. Jeanette, go on. You were going to jump in there.
No, I was just thinking about the sort of tips. I think one of the nice things you can do is actually a scrapbook of like previous Christmases. Whether you've got some family photos of Christmas from previous years and putting it together in almost like a scrapbook. So the person with dementia can do a bit of reminiscing about previous Christmases as well. That's quite a nice idea as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Jeanette. It's about making those memories, isn't it? And year on year on year, just thinking back and then making new ones.
Yeah, so you're going to take me on to another thought that we were to talk about, but I just want to do a quick refresh because I think there's some people who've joined us. Just to say, talking Christmas tonight, anybody who wants to come and join us and get involved in the conversation, feel free to request the mic. So you've got in the bottom left hand corner, you'll have a little button with a microphone, and will currently say you're on mute, but if you want to join us, you can click request the mic and do so that way. If you haven't got that, it depends what type of phone you're on and what version of this you've got. You can stick your hand up with the little hand up emoji at the end, which is found on the love heart with the plus sign. So feel free to join us and come in at any point, or alternatively just obviously feel free to stay and listen. It's great that you're here this evening to hear this conversation. I think it is so important. So where you were taking me when I was thinking when you were talking there was actually around, you talked about putting together like a scrapbook or a memory book for somebody with ideas and pictures and things from Christmas past. And that made me think that actually that would be a really lovely present for somebody. That could be a really good, meaningful present for somebody. And I wondered if any of you had got any tips or ideas about presents. And obviously it's all going to be personal because it depends what your loved one likes, and what would be an appropriate present for me might not be an appropriate present for yourself, Asma, and you'd have to tailor things that way. But any sort of ideas or suggestions about sort of what might make a good present? Who wants to go first?
I think the things like hand creams and things like that, because particularly if you can get them with a person's favourite scent as well, and then just giving the person with dementia a nice hand massage. And to be honest, I'd have a nice hand massage on Christmas. That'd be quite nice. Put my feet up, someone can massage my hands and feet. That'd be lovely. But yeah, I think just things like that. So anything that involves the senses, I think, is always a good thing for Christmas presents.
So I guess that might include sweet foods as well, and some nice chocolates, or obviously not if somebody's diabetic, but something like that. So no, often for people with dementia, that enjoyment of, well, for all of us, let's be honest, that enjoyment of sweet food can stay, and a nice box of marzipan fruits or chocolates might well be a nice present to go with that hand massage, building on that sense. Any other good present ideas?
I think music is something that's quite relevant to our people with dementia, and I'm using some MP3 players which were donated to us, and I'm getting really good positive feedback. And I was with a lady today who was very, very agitated, wanting to stand up, but is very weak on her legs, and she kept saying, "I want to dance, I want to dance." So I took down one of these little MP3 players, which is preloaded with music, got a pair of headphones that would normally go into the television that goes above her head, and popped it on, came outside, and when I looked back, the beaming smile that she had, she blew me kisses and she jiggled in her chair. And it gave me a really nice feeling inside. So I think, sometimes, something like a CD might be good, of specifics, music that might have meant something to them, that they liked a certain singer or a band, or whether it's classical music. So something like that I think would be good. And I think it goes in line with, your memory book, your photo albums and your memory boxes.
You're so right. And Mark, you've just talked beautifully about music, and I think we know, don't we, that music is one of those things that we retain. We retain the memory of songs and music in a very different way, and we make an emotional connection to so many different songs, and you will know, won't you, when you can hear a song that you've not heard for years and years and years, and you can sing every single word, and you can remember where you were when you first heard that song, and who you were with, and how you were feeling at that time, and whether that's happy or sad, and I think it's so powerful, and can really shift the whole atmosphere for all of us, actually. There's loads of studies into it, and loads of evidence around the difference that music makes. So actually putting on Christmas music, if somebody likes that sort of music, or a bit of Cliff Richard, or is Cliff Richard Christmas music anyway, getting these kind of things going can really be powerful, can't they? Any other tips for Christmas ideas then? Christmas present ideas? Hi, Sadie. Hello. Do you want to? Have you got some ideas?
Hello.
Nice to see you here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's good to be here. I was just going to add on a couple of things that were said earlier about, the photo book. You could include sensory stuff in there as well to make it more involved. The person that's using that, that's received that as a gift, could have, soft things on there, make it as interactive as possible, and it will really help to include that person in that. I was also going to say, for some context, I work on an older adult mental health ward as an occupational therapist, and iPads have been an absolute godsend for the past sort of year and a half. So on that note of sort of like a CD, going back to the old sort of mixtape stuff, you can make a playlist on YouTube. So if someone really enjoyed certain types of music, you could have that on a playlist, and it's got the joy of just being able to skip. The problem with a YouTube is that you do get the ads and stuff, but you can just skip through, and it's a really good thing. So yeah, no, I'll just add on on to the really good ideas from earlier.
Do you know, you're so right, and there's companies, there's a couple, there's Music for Life, and a chap called Norms who will provide some of these as well, and preload the iPads or MP3 players with specific songs that somebody can listen to, and you know, it's just so important, isn't it? You know, it's such a powerful thing, and actually, you know, it kind of reminds you of the mixtape, you know, recording, mostly showing my age, recording the tapes, you know, with the tape player and trying to catch the songs, but actually putting these things together and having them there, that someone, if they can use it, if they're able to, you know, finding an old Walkman, you could probably find one somewhere, probably in my loft there's a couple knocking about, but you know, putting something together that actually the person themselves can perhaps use, and you know, get some benefit that way out of. The other thing that I always think is a really nice present as well is kind of like a rummage box or a reminiscence box, because you know, you don't have to have dementia, do you, to, if you got given a present full of a box full of things that have been specifically picked out and chosen for you, that you're going to enjoy, that might have significant memories for you, that would be a lovely gift. I would be so delighted with that. And you know, and actually it's something I often sort of suggest to people that they do, and whether that's looking through someone's loft and finding significant things, or thinking about past hobbies and interests, and you know, and we talked earlier about the senses, so things to touch, things to taste, things that maybe feathers or talc, baby talc, or you know, whatever it might be, and putting them together in a box, whether that's a shoebox because you've not got much time, or a big large leather suitcase because you've got loads of time, but actually putting a box together of stuff that's going to evoke a memory, hopefully evoke an emotion response for somebody. You know, you might have that stuff around your house, so it doesn't have to cost a fortune. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of thinking, and occasionally a bit of wandering around charity shops to find specific things if you can't. And the nice thing about the kind of a rummage box or a reminiscence box is that you can get, I talked about children earlier, you know, younger people in your family involved in putting these together and creating them. So I can see some hands up, and I don't know who went first there. I think it was yourself, Manny. So if we do Manny and then Sadie, if that's all right.
I think it was Sadie, but I
I
don't.
apologise, Sadie.
No, it's okay.
Okay, is it, you know, 2021, the year of equality, men first.
Absolutely.
No, I was actually just thinking about what you said, and we've done something in our fundraising before, which involved a lot of different people, and that's like you could probably pick your loved one's favourite song, or a Christmas carol, or a Christmas song, and then get all your family members or old friends to record a couple of words each singing the song, and just use a simple app on your phone and put this song together. So you have lots of different familiar faces all singing very badly your favourite song.
Oh,
And
Manny, I love it. You're so creative. Every time you join us, I love your. That is just gold. I love that idea. I'd love that.
we've done that for the fundraising. So what we did was we for our latest Samosa Saturday, I targeted all the kids who volunteer with us. So these are all under 10-year-olds, and I got them to record a few lines each, inviting everybody to come to our fundraising event, and then put it together. And you just press play, and it just makes you smile and laugh, because you know, kids are kids. And if you do that on a song, especially where you're getting people to sing, somebody won't sing a full song, they'll be too embarrassed, but they'll say a couple of words, and when you put it together, it's actually quite a funny thing to watch, and something that they could watch over and over again.
I absolutely love that idea, and this is me making my own Christmas list. I wish somebody would create that for me. It would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And you're absolutely right. The idea of singing a whole song might be a bit daunting, but you know, and that's something that you would go back to and back to again, and especially if you could get people involved who are maybe further away and they can't come and see you in person, but they can record a little bit on their phone and send it to you. And there's only a week left if you're doing it for Christmas Day, so that's got to go on the plan if you're going to try and do it in time. But I love that idea. That's fantastic. Sadie, go on. You've got to top Manny's idea now.
Oh no, I can't top that at all. It was really good. That's such a good idea, and it's just given me such a that's something that I'm going to use with one of the chaps that I work with. I think it'll just be such a good. It's fantastic. But no, I was just going back to your reminiscence boxes, and that's something that we try to do with all of our chaps before they're discharged, and we call it a self-soothe box. And it was something that me and the activity coordinator did. It's very similar to a reminiscence box, but we just had a list of like what their favourite film is, and what their favourite biscuits are, and all bits and pieces like that. And it does not need to be expensive. It is it's quite an affordable thing to do, but it's got so much to it that it's so worth doing. It's so worthwhile. So I recommend anyone do that, really, because it's such a brilliant thing to be able to pull out and put away when needed. And the film can be quite a difficult one, same with lots of different pieces. So sometimes we just print on a bit of paper, like maybe the album cover for a big piece of music or something like that, so it's a talking point for some people as well.
It's fabulous, isn't it? All these different ideas. And another slightly odd one, but it works, is like ID jewellery that sometimes people don't want to wear. They kind of might think, it's not really something nice. And I remember giving somebody a present. It was actually my uncle. We gave him a present for Christmas, which was an ID bracelet, and he loved that bracelet because it was a gift. It was a present, and instantly put it on and wore it. And actually, I know if we'd given him that and said, this is a medical bracelet to keep you safe, he wouldn't have wanted that at all. It would have been a very, very different reaction. So, sometimes actually thinking, is there something, because a rummage box or music, these are stuff that we know can have a therapeutic value, but they're not necessarily on the same league as some ID jewellery or a clock that has got the night and day and the time in it, or even something like a weighted blanket. But sometimes something you might want to introduce to somebody to see if it has a positive effect on them. If you give it as a gift, it might change the response. It might kind of elicit that, isn't this is a lovely thing because it was a gift, rather than this is something I'm being told I ought to use or wear, or it was going to help me and help my dementia. You might get that different response. Mark, Jeanette, Asma, sorry, I know that you've been fairly quiet for a little while. So anything at this point that any of you want to jump in on?
I just love the idea of calling it a self-soothe box. I think that's such a nice idea. And also just the fact that wrapping something up and giving it to somebody as a present rather than enforcing it on them, I just think that's great.
And I certainly think, going forward, with our patients that are in hospital, for instance, routinely we as hospital staff give patients presents, but maybe we need to think a little bit more outside of the box rather than just giving everybody the same sort of thing, actually giving them something that will actually mean something to them from us.
So it's difficult, isn't it? And I guess in terms of when someone's in hospital, it will depend a little bit on how well you get to know that person, won't it? And and how long they're there, and just because we're talking about hospital, and I know we're kind of coming up to the last 10 minutes, really. These spaces always go so fast, and it might be something in the new year we have to extend them and do it a little bit longer, because we always almost run out of time. But there is something about if you can't see your loved one, because so far we've kind of talked a lot about if your loved one is coming to you, or presents that you might take in. But if somebody is in hospital or in a care home, is there any tips in terms of that, if actually they can't come to you, how to conduct that visit on that day?
I think if you're going to go and visit them, it's about having having a conversation with the care home staff to see how you can fit in with what's going on within the home, because the home itself will probably want to make a big fuss around Christmas. So you can sort of become part of that, which gives you a better feeling at Christmas. So always utilize those experts who are planning within the care home. But when it's in hospital, normally it's around, getting as many people in to, make it as normal as possible. But I think in these times it's more difficult, and I think we are going to be utilising more media things, so the iPads and things like that, to keep people in contact with each other.
I absolutely agree, Mark. I think one thing that did just pop into my head was in our trust. So I'm also an acute nurse. In our trust, we use what we call readers, which are reminiscence interactive therapy activities, and they're computers that have different things on them. So they have different genres of music, different films, different games and things, and we use them on activity days for people with dementia. And actually, we can ask families if they wanted to, if they have a certain type of music that their loved one likes, we can upload it on there, so we can pop it on for their loved one. So if they can't visit for whatever reason, or if they wanted to visit and have that music while they were there, we can pop it on for them, so they wouldn't have to. It can take away some of the stress for the carer to have to actually, make a playlist. We can do it for them, so we can support people in that respect.
And I agree with Asma. We've just been given 4 readers, and I don't know about you, Asma, but we've also been given some tablets with the reader stuff added on as well. And I also know that I'm looking into something called the Omni Table at the moment as well, which is a similar sort of thing. So there's lots more things that we can be utilising now, with technology.
Yeah, I agree. I think for care to take away some of the burden from the carers, if they can talk to us, especially if they've got an Admiral nurse in the trust, that's amazing. So you can talk to us, and we can try and make Christmas Day as special as we can for your loved one, for your person with dementia, because it's a really horrible time if you are in hospital, but we can try and make it as nice as possible for them.
And I guess on that, it's about working in partnership then, isn't it, with the professional team around your loved one if they're not with you, and and actually kind of saying, Mum loves pigs in blankets, or she hates them, or she doesn't like stuffing, or or she would normally like to have a nap, or she's the type of person who's in the party hat joining in with all the songs, and kind of making sure that that dialogue has happened, and if you are able to go in and visit your loved one, kind of checking out when's a good time to do that, even because you don't want to arrive in the time when there's the children's choir in singing, or maybe you do, maybe that's that actually sounds like something you'd like to do, or whatever it is that's going on, kind of having that conversation beforehand to say, I want to come and visit. When might be a good time to come and visit if I'm allowed to do so? Or when can mum or dad or whoever be taken to a quiet room so that I can have some FaceTime with them and have that conversation that way, without them anything else that might be competing for them as well. Any other tips?
I think Asma may agree. I think Admiral nurses are becoming more and more visual in acute hospitals now, and I think we're in that great position of being sort of like a go-between, really, because I think relatives do tend to feel a bit guilty calling the hospital to ask what's going on, or to offer advice and things, but they feel that they can actually talk to us, which then we in turn can then go and go to the ward and go as that go between as well. I don't know whether you agree with that, Asma.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we're that bridge for them of communication and everything else, so we can update them as much as, but also just be that person to listen to them. And if they've got any concerns, we can take it forward. If they've got anything that they need to know, we're just there to support them in any way that we can.
Yeah, you're so right, and I guess, you know, if there is people who are listening this evening who have got a loved one in a hospital or a care home, or aren't aware of some of the services that we provide, you know, we have got a helpline that you can call, and we can point people towards, if we've got a local service, a local Admiral nurse who might be able to help you. We've also got appointments that you can book via our website as well. So you could have an appointment at a time that suits you, or indeed you might have a local service. So I guess, I know we're kind of coming up to the wrapping up time, but one of the things that I kind of was thinking throughout this session really is that the message that's come across is that you've got to give yourself a break occasionally. You've got to, yes, plan, but be completely willing for things to all change for any reason, whether it's the government, it's the, you know, things that are happening, and have that flexibility and that randomness. And I think actually perhaps sometimes don't put that much pressure on yourself. Don't worry if this Christmas isn't the same as the last Christmas or the Christmas 20 years ago, and not putting those unrealistic expectations on. And we all see the adverts on TV that look amazing and glossy and everything's lovely, but actually that's not real life. It's an advert to sell you Marks and Spencer's products or whatever, you know. So you do need to kind of think, well, okay, this is my Christmas and I'm going to make the best of it, and, you know, and try and get people involved as much as possible. Maybe limit some of the noise, the fuss, limit the visitors coming in, but essentially do whatever gives you and your family some peace. You know, if it's what if it's a certain piece of music, looking through a rummage box, having a hand massage, you know, whatever feels right, to do that. So I guess that would be some of my closing summaries. I'm going to invite the other speakers on the stage, and I'm very happy to include you, Sadie and Manny, as well, because you're definitely speakers this evening. So I'll start with Mark, if that's okay, and then work my way around just for a couple of closing statements.
Thank you very much. Well, Merry Christmas to everybody who's joined us today, and thank you for joining us. And Vicky, thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I think just remembering that it is one day. But I think when some of the things that we've discussed today really helps us think about going back to basics of what Christmas really is about, which is about family. It's not about how much money you spend on people. It's not, you know, how big your turkey is and how big your party is. It's about family. It's about getting together and making memories, going forward, thinking back to what you used to do, and then thinking about what you're going to do next. So that's it from me. But thank you very much, everybody, for being here.
No, thank you very much for joining us, Mark, and Merry Christmas as well. Jeanette, I'm going to go to you next, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think it is. It's like you say, we get so excited, don't we? And it is just one day at the end of the day. So I think it's just having a bit of chill time, having a bit of humour, and just kind of going with the flow, really. And again, thanks all for listening, and have a happy, healthy, safe Christmas and New Year.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. And Asma, any final thoughts?
No, just that I echo everything that Mark and Jeanette have said, and thank you for everyone for listening. And it's a time to enjoy yourselves, but also not to feel guilty if you couldn't do whatever you managed to do. So for any reason something didn't go to plan, it's absolutely fine, and not to feel guilty, and to use services like Dementia UK Admiral nurses for any support that we can offer. But again, Merry Christmas and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Asma, for joining us this evening, and Merry Christmas as well. Manny, any final thoughts?
Yeah, and just want to again wish everybody a brilliant holiday season and a Merry Christmas. You know, stay safe, and but the most important thing is just to keep talking and keep listening, because that makes you grow as human beings. For me, this is a growing opportunity, learning and listening to people in their roles and what they do and how they cope. And when we learn and when we grow, we become better. And when we become better, we can care better in whichever way that is. So just keep communicating. And this is a wonderful way, a very laid back, relaxed carry your phone into the kitchen, do your cooking, watch the TV while you're talking to and listening to some wonderful people. So keep it going. Thank you very much for hosting these spaces, and hopefully we can do more of them.
Oh, thank you so much, Manny, and Merry Christmas to you too. Sadie, any final thoughts?
Manny, have you got CCTV in my house? Because I've just put my dinner on.
I was actually imagining. I did look at your faces, and I thought, wonder what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sprawled on my couch and my feet up. I'm not going to lie, and so I won't. You don't have to reveal what you're doing if it's.
I'm just pre in the oven in the kitchen, but no, I thought, oh, when you said that, I was like, oh dear. But I'd echo what everyone else has said. Merry Christmas, and have a nice relaxed one, and Happy New Year as well. It feels like we've blinked this year, doesn't it? And it's gone. But I would just say as well, be kind to yourself at this time of year, and everyone around you. I think it's as much as it's a lovely time, it can be a very stressful time for everyone, can't it? And it can be difficult to always be kind to ourselves, I think. So just take it easy and try and give yourself some stillness throughout the day. Take some time for yourself, especially if you have got a loved one with dementia. It can be challenging at times, and I think we've all known people that can be really struggling. And just take time for yourself as much as you can, even though it is so busy. But yes, be kind, I would say. That's always the way.
And what a
Sadie,
great
is something burning in the oven?
Oh dear, let me go and have a quick look.
what an absolute great way to end the session, though, to the space today, because you're so right. Be kind to yourselves, enjoy, let other people help. A lot of us, we kind of we take on all of the tasks, and we think we're the only one who can do everything right. But get people involved, and get some music on. Listening to a bit of Christmas music, or not Christmas music, but any kind of music, lifts people's mood, doesn't it? So so do get that. Have a healthy, happy, amazing Christmas. We'll still be doing Twitter Spaces in the new year. We might start doing them a bit more frequently. Always very happy for people to join us as speakers. I love the fact that you've got your feet up, Manny, and that you're sticking the dinner in the oven, Sadie, because I want them to feel relaxed and a sort of safe and informal space to come along and have a bit of a chat about something that matters to us. So I'm delighted to hear you give that feedback. The next space that we're talking about is going to be in January. We're going to be talking about hospitals. But obviously we've had a fair few people from the hospital setting this evening and from the acute setting on the call. So do feel free to join us again, any of you. Always an open invitation. And indeed, Kerry, who has been listening in this evening, is going to be joining me as a speaker for the next session. So no pressure, Kerry. This is what it's all about. But we are going to be talking about, as I say, hospitals and all things about how to plan a good hospital stay, what they might involve, communication. Is all going to come into play again. So that'll be towards the end of January. But thank you everybody for this evening. Great to say, any feedback you want to give us afterwards, please do, because that's how we can listen and learn and improve these spaces and make them as meaningful as possible for you all. So thank you. And on that note, I will end the last spaces of the year. So thanks everybody who's joined in again. Have a lovely Christmas. Take care. Goodbye.